Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you can hear me okay. Let me know in the comments if I am coming in loud and clear. I have done a couple of little adjustments with my mic, so I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. So, hello, my name is Mari Clark, and I am the face of Mari Clark Creations. Welcome to my YouTube channel and to my Facebook page. If you're joining me over there, I am streaming to both Facebook and YouTube today, so you should be able to catch me in either of those spots. Hi, Bonnie. And Lynn says the sound is great. So that is perfect. Well, today we're going to do some mixed media making. I'm going to be making a card using a bunch of different products, but primarily from a little bit from All in Create and the beautiful stamps from Tracy Evans today. So I'm really excited to showcase Tracy's new stamps that she has come out with. And I do have her apron, but I just realized just right at this very moment that I forgot to grab it and put it on. And I know that it is upstairs. So it's not like I can even just grab it quickly from my studio here. I know that I did have it upstairs and I know that I left it up there, but it is gorgeous. So I have linked up in the description box below to Tracy's online shop and to a couple of other places, or one other place for sure that you can purchase Tracy stamps. So you can get her stamps from Tracy directly, and then you can also get them. One of the stockists that I highly recommend as well is the Paper and Ink Boutique in Calgary. They are one of the stockists in Canada, and I know that they do carry Tracy's brand new stamps, and they are absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for everyone who's here. And I am going to also be talking today about a new class that I will be teaching over at the Paper and Ink Boutique and the Paper Crafters Workshop in March. On March 17th, I'll be teaching a class there, which I will be teaching a set of mixed media cards as well. And so I'll be showing you the samples and talking about that class a little bit as well today. And there are links to where you can purchase that class in the description box below this video as well. I have also linked up to other products that I'm using today also. And so if you're looking for some of those things, you can pop down into the description box after the live is over and check that out. But along the way, make sure you're asking in the comment section if you have any questions about what we're doing in today's live. I hope you are inspired to do a little bit of mixed media creation, and the mixed media that I'm going to be doing today is super simple. I'm not going to be doing a technique that I invented by any stretch. It's actually a really popular technique that lots of people have done, and I'm sure you've seen it before, but maybe perhaps not in this combination of stamps and stencils and so on. Okay, so I am going to take you over to my desktop here, and I'm going to turn on some bright lights so that we've got lots of light on our work surface here today. And what I have on my desk is I have the white paper that you see here is actually Vicky Bouton Foundations paper. And that is a substrate that I really like to work on. It's really nice and heavy, and it will take a little bit of moisture. It'll take some water, which is great. It's super heavy, and it is 140 pounds or 300 GSM. And what I like to do is take this and cut it down into quarters so that I end up with 4 6x6 pieces of cardstock to create with. Okay, so I am going to just put some comments over here so that I can see them. And so what I did was I did take a couple of sheets of that foundations paper and I trimmed it out into the squares that I want to use for my project today. And I do apologize. You are going to see some ads during today's live because the video is monetized. So you will just see every once in a while, you're going to see an ad pop up, and just click skip on there. And I will be right back after that ad is finished playing. So, okay, so we have got our substrate here, and I have got a stencil that I'm going to be working with. And this is one of Tracy's stencils from All in Create. This one is called Blobology, and it's number 183. I love this stencil. I love circles. And that stencil is just super, super fun to create with. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to take a little bit of Spellbinders tape and I'm going to tape my paper down to my surface here. If you do have a sticky mat, a grip mat, you could also use that for your process. And I'm also going to put a little bit of tape on this side of my stencil just so that I can create a little bit of a hinge so that I can see what kind of transfer of color that I have on my project. So I'm going to be working with some Lindy's Magicals. And if you really love to work with powdered watercolors, there's lots of different powdered watercolors on the market. Lindy's are only that's only one brand of powdered watercolors. You could also use, I know there's Nuvo has a product. There's also, there's tons. I have a few others in my stash as well. And so Lindy's is just one of the brands. And I'm going to be using, the colors I'll use today are Water Lilies Lavender and Kissin' Couple Crimson. So two really, really pretty colors that are going to work well together. Now I am going to lift my sleeves up here a little bit because I'm not really wanting to get a whole bunch of pigment on my sweater here in case we get super crazy. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spritz a little bit of water over top of the stencil like so. So I'm just going to spritz that with some water. And then what I'll do is I'll just open up this bottle, and this is actually a little shaker. So there's a little tab here that you can open up. And now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and tap some of this pigment over top of my stencil, like so. And then what I will do is I will grab the second one and I'm going to open this guy up. And this is the purple, the lavender. And I'm just going to tap some of that pigment out as well. This is such a fun technique. It is so easy to do. And you can get some really, really fun prints that you can make. I'm going to just mix the lavender and pink together a little bit there. And now what I'm going to do is take my water bottle again, and I'm just going to spritz that. And what that's going to do is it's going to wet the pigment on top of the stencil as well. Okay, so now I've really activated those magicals, those colors, and we can really see them kind of swirling together and just creating just a really, really beautiful pattern you can see on the paper. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab another piece of paper, and I'm just going to take a little bit of paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe up some of the water here around my project, like so. And then what I'm going to do is put my second piece of paper over here to the side, and I'm going to lift this up. And we can see what kind of a pattern we have underneath. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this and I'm going to press it. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to press it onto the clean paper like so. And I'm going to take a paper towel and just press on that and give that a press. And what that's going to do is it's going to transfer that color onto the cardstock. So we can make numerous prints with this one application of that Lindy's product. Okay, so I'm going to lift this up and you can see that beautiful transfer of color there. But the thing is, there's still lots of pigment on the stencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put that one aside, and I'm going to take this one here and I'll put it here. And what I'm going to do is spritz it again with a little bit more water. Just activate those colors again. And I'm going to put another clean piece here. And I'm going to transfer more of the color onto another clean piece. And I'll give that a press. And so I'm just going to continuously make more prints until I feel like I've exhausted all of the color on the stencil so that I'm not wasting any of it. Okay, so there you can see I'm still getting lots of really great transfer of color there. And now you can see there's still pigment on there, even more. It's like the gift that just keeps on giving. So I'm going to give that a spritz again. And I'm going to flip it over and give that another press. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have what I'm going to have when I'm finished is just multiple pieces of cardstock that I can use to create with. So you know, I can die cut out of these pieces, I can stamp on them, I can use them for backgrounds, whatever it is that I want. And I'm just gonna, you know, have these beautiful, beautiful pieces still. So how gorgeous is that? I love the subtlety too. Like it doesn't have to be super dark. You don't have to have a really dark print for it to be really beautiful. So we're going to do one more. I'll grab one more print off of this. Flip that over. So I did re-wet that again. I added a little more water on there. And it is a really great way, Lynn, to make foundation pieces, 100%. And you can just keep making those pieces. And, you know, if you can grab more colors and start over again and just keep going. You can grab another stencil while you're in the mess and and make another pattern with another stencil. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and clean the rest of the pigment off of that stencil. And I'm just going to set that aside. And now what I'll do is I'll clean up my area here. But what I'll do in that process is I'm going to just grab some clean paper towel and I'm going to dab some of the pigment up on some of these and dry them a little bit so that we can actually use them. So it is nice if you can let them dry naturally so that you don't take away from the vibrance of the color. But if you're wanting to use it right away, you can just take and dab the excess moisture and pigment up with your paper towel. And in that way, it's just going to be, you're going to be able to use it a little bit more quickly than if you didn't do that. So I'll just go ahead and sop up some of this excess water on these pieces and bring this one back in here. So pretty. Love that color. That lavender is just gorgeous. And here you can see with the magicals how we have a mixture of the colors so that we're getting kind of more of an orange tone. And on the one that I did originally in the sample that I posted online, I posted this sneak. You can see on that one, the color is much more pink, but it's the exact colors of magicals that I used here on these. So with the magicals, you never really know for sure what colors you're going to get because there's like a mixture of colors in those pigments, which is really fun. And that's what kind of makes them super special, I think. So really great, right? We've got these really fun patterns that we can use for our card today. Okay, so I'm just going to check and see how dry this one is. It's still pretty wet. This one I probably am not going to use anyways. I always find that I like the patterns better on the ones where I've stamped with the stencil rather than the initial one that catches the pigment. But this one will still be useful for a project. I just don't know that I'll use it today. So I'll set that one aside. And now we've got all of these other really great pieces. So we've got 4 pieces that we can use that are potentially just perfect for our project today. So what we'll do is we'll finish our background to start with, and I'm just trying to decide which one I might want to use. I think I might use this one. just looking at it, I'm going to be kind of offsetting it so that the circle is kind of off to the side a little bit. So I'm just looking at which pattern I'm going to want to use for that. I think probably this is going to be the winner for the main background piece. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and stick these ones to the side. And then I'm just going to take this and just give it a little bit of a dry. Just dry it a little bit. Hello, Doreen. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you. Just going to dry this a little bit because I do want to do a little bit of ink blending on here. I don't want this to be wet. So I'm just using my heat tool to take out some of that moisture from my foundations paper. So just heating it a little bit. Just until it kind of feels dry. And I think it feels pretty dry now. Feels pretty good. And so if you were just watching that ad, I do apologize there. Okay, so I think this is how the orientation of this is going to go. What I'm going to do is grab this little mask that I created. And how I created that was with just a scrap piece of paper. And I used a 2-inch punch. Okay, or if you don't have a circle punch, you could just use one of your circle stacking dies. And so I just created this little opening here so that I can do a little bit of stenciling, so to speak, through that. And I am going to use a little bit of masking paper. So I'm just going to mask this off just in case I go over the edge of my paper on this side, which I don't want to do. And I am going to grab some, I'm going to use some little bit of Kitsch Flamingo to start off with here. And just grab my blending brushes. Got a pink guy there. And I'm going to grab the purple. And so I'm going to start off with the Kitsch Flamingo. And I'm just going to grab a paper towel roll here and just clean any of the excess color off of there. And we're going to grab the Kitsch Flamingo. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of ink. And I'm going to ink blend over this circle with that pink. And so the Kitsch Flamingo is going to be our base color here. And that's going to coordinate really nicely with the pink from the Lindy's. And this little mask here is just going to prevent us from going on to the rest of the background. Just don't want to go on to the background at all other than through that circle. Okay, so I'm watching the comments. I don't see any questions so far. The next color that we're going to use is some Seedless preserves. All of the inks I'm using here are oxide inks today. So this one is Seedless preserves. I'm just going to go in with that Kitsch Flamingo brush again. And now what I want to do is I want to kind of try to keep this to the edge. I want to just leave a little bit of that Kitsch Flamingo as a little bit of a highlight. Some of it's going to get covered up anyways. So I'm just going to use a little bit of that Seedless preserves there. And now I'm going to use a little bit of the Villainous Potion, which is one of my favorite Distress Oxide colors. I absolutely love it. And I'm just going to go kind of on the edge with the Villainous Potion. And all of these colors are just going to coordinate very nicely with the Lindy's that I used. I'm going to just go in and clean off that Seedless preserves a little bit. Just till we get down to that Kitsch. And now what I'll do is just go on here and blend back into the seedless preserves. Okay, so I'm just kind of blending backwards, and I just want to retain that lighter area there. And that's all that I need to do for my ink blending. So I was thinking about using some picked raspberry as well, but I don't think I'm going to on this one. So now you can just see how that fills in that little circle area in the center. And I just like that as kind of like a little area off to the side of the focal point for my project. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take one of my favorite die sets, and that's the Gina K Master Layouts 2. I love this set so much. I use it and use it and use it. It is probably my most used die set in my space. I love it. And what I can do with this is just kind of move it around until I have it in the spot that I want that circle to be on the front of my card. And I know that I want it to be off to the side of where I'm going to be putting the other details here. Okay, so I'm thinking right about there. What I really love about this die is it's got that stitched detail. And I'm just going to look and make sure just before I cut it to make sure that I grab the stitched die. And I do have the stitched die. So that is great. So I'm just going to make sure that I have this positioned where I had it roughly. And I'm going to go ahead and add some Easy C tape onto the sides. And then I will run this through my die cutting machine. And the die cutting machine that I'm using today is my Gemini 2. If you haven't been around these parts before, I do work for Crafter's Companion and I love the Gemini 2. It works really well for me. I have not had any issues with it. What I love the most about it is how it die cuts. It does a fantastic job of die cutting. So what I do is I just put my project onto the bottom plate like that. And then the next is the clear plate, the magnetic plate, and the top plate. And then I run it through my machine. So now we've got this really stunning little piece that we can use that has the really cute little stitched detail on it, which I really like. I think it just nicely finishes off the card front in that way. So far, this is what we have for our card front, which is really fun. I love that distressed looking background. I love those circles. I love this nice filled in circle. I think it's really pretty. And so now we can set this aside and go on to our next step. So what I'm going to do is bring these other pieces back in. This is where I'm going to show you Tracy's amazing stamps. I have two of her new stamps here today. I have TE4 and TE6. So this one on TE4, we're going to be using this little bird at the bottom. This little bird is absolutely adorable. I love both of these birds. I love the sentiments that are on, or the quotes that are on this set, and this floral is just beautiful. The details are gorgeous, and her stamps are always really amazing quality. They're beautiful photopolymer stamps. So we will be using that at some point. And the other stamp that I'm going to use, and I'll start with this one, TE6, just gorgeous, the branched heart stamp. It's beautiful. I just love this. I think it's super artsy. And you also get some other really interesting stamps to go with, including a smaller version of the larger one. So really cool repetition that you can achieve with this stamp set, and so many other cool details. So I am going to grab my Misty, and I'm going to use my original Misty size here. And what I'm going to do is choose one of these backgrounds to stamp on. And I'm just looking, definitely want something a little bit more vibrant. And this one's a little more pink, which is going to match our background a little bit more. So I think I'll use this one. And I'm actually going to take a flower sackcloth and just give this a wipe, because there's a little bit of powder from the magical still on there. And I want to make sure that I get that off before I stamp on there. I love Tracy's birds too, right? Aren't they great? They're so sweet. Always so sweet. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. I just washed it, so it seems like it's stuck. But I do have one of the waffle flower mats in there, one of the sticky mats. And now what I'm going to do is grab the stamp, and I'm going to use the large branched heart stamp here. And I'm going to just decide where I want to stamp. Probably right about there, I'm thinking will be great. That looks like a good spot. We're going to get a little bit of the purple and a little bit of the pink that way. Maybe down a little bit. Right about there. The nice thing is when you put this on, you can just decide, right, which part of it is that you're going to use. So I'm going to grab this ink here is what I'm going to be using. And that is a black pigment ink. And the reason why I'm choosing that is because it stamps beautifully, but also because it is a pigment ink, it is going to dry slowly. So I do want to do a little bit of heat embossing over top. So that is why I love that VersaFine ink. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of photocopy paper. And I'm going to put that underneath here when we do our heat embossing. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and stamp this out. And I'm going to ink that up with this VersaFine ink. So tap that ink on there. And give that a good press. Get that stamped out. I want to make sure that I get a really nice impression, so I might stamp this a couple of times. I want it to be really nice and dark. So give that another press. Press it in there, make sure we get a really good transfer of our ink. And that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is just grab this out of there. I'll put my MISTI off to the side. And I'm going to grab some clear embossing powder. And I'm just going to run some of the clear embossing powder over top of my stamped image. Okay. And if that happens to stick to any of the pigment that you have on there, it's not a big deal because the embossing powder is clear. Okay. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and heat that and melt it. So I am going to make a little bit of noise with my heat tool. I'm going to let this heat up a little bit, and then I'm going to blow it onto that image and melt that embossing powder. Okay, so I'm just going to take a look here and make sure that this is all shiny and melted. And yeah, it's looking great. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now what we're going to do is just give that a second to cool off, and we are going to stamp our little bird. So I'm going to grab the bird off of the other stamp set. So this one, sweet little peace and calm, or calm and peace bird. And again, we are going to stamp that onto one of our images here. So I'm going to grab my MISTI again and just going to grab that stamp off. We're all finished with this stamp, but before I take it off, I'm just going to give it a little wipe with a baby wipe. Why do you heat the gun first? So Doreen, the reason why I let the gun heat up is so that when I take it to the paper, it's good and hot. And I want to reduce the amount of time the heat gun is on the paper as much as I possibly can. So by preheating the gun, by the time it gets onto the paper, it's good and hot. It's going to take less time to melt the embossing powder. And I also like to heat the back of the paper as well, because by the time you heat the back of the paper and then get the heat onto the powder, it's going to melt the powder a lot more quickly. Hi, Linda. Thanks so much for joining. Happy to see you. And so that's the method to the madness there with that. Now here's another one of our papers. I could actually, you know what? I'm actually going to just go back. I'm going to use another part of this one here. That makes more sense because most of this is going to get covered up by the stamp anyways. So I might as well just reuse more of this background here, but not very much of the background is going to show through on this because it's so black. You can just barely see the color through that peace and calm, but you can see it. So I do want to make sure that I use some of the pigmented background for stamping this bird as well. Okay, so again, I'm just going to use the black pigment ink here. Make sure that that's pressed nicely into the corner just in case it lets go when I lift the stamp up. And again, I'm using that VersaFine Onyx black ink. And it's just a really nice black ink. It stamps really nice and crisp and dark. You might have to stamp it a couple times, which is fine, just to make sure you've got a really nice dark image. And then again, I am going to emboss that. So I'm just going to grab a little bit again, put that copy paper down just to catch the extra powder that might fly around here. And this is just any clear embossing powder works for this. It doesn't have to be Ranger. I happen to be using Ranger Clear, but you could use Wow clear embossing powder, your Gina K, whatever you have. And I just like the dimension that you get with an embossed image using that clear embossing powder and that black ink. So again, I'll just let my heat tool warm up a little bit and then I'll heat the back and the front. Now I do like to, I just really like to make sure that I don't keep that heat on the paper for super, super long because you can actually light the paper on fire. Ask me how I know. Yeah, it will actually burn. I haven't actually ignited the paper, but I have created smoke. So I do know that it actually will burn. So that's kind of terrifying. So I do try to make sure that I'm very careful with my heat tool in my craft room. Yeah, that was fast, right? Because the heat tool was hot and I heated the back first. And then when I put the heat tool onto the bird, it just melted very quickly. So now what I'm going to do is a little bit of fussy cutting. And hopefully fussy cutting isn't something that you despise. I actually have grown to really like fussy cutting. I don't mind doing it at all. And it's a really great way to create a little element on your project when you're using stamps like these. Okay, so I've got this one here. And Linda says, I have turned the paper brown. Yeah, it's easy to do, right? So easy to do. Okay, so we're going to fussy cut around the edge of this heart. And because there's no line there on this side, I'm just going to eyeball it, so to speak, and create the other side of the heart. and it's not going to be perfect. And you'll notice that this side of the heart that Tracy created with her stamp is not perfect either. It's meant to look kind of a little bit distressed, which I think really is part of the appeal of the stamp, right? It makes it look pretty cool. And so for this side, I'm just going to, and you could even take a pencil and kind of draw the shape of the heart if you want before you cut it. But I'm just going to go ahead and freestyle it here. And then after I've got it cut, I can go back and shape it if I need to a little bit more. But I love this stamp. It is so cool. And it's just kind of like, you know, a non-traditional sort of, if you're thinking about this as a Valentine's, it's sort of a non-traditional looking Valentine stamp. I love it. I absolutely love it. I am obsessed with it. It is so cool. So I wouldn't throw these out. I would keep these scraps for die cutting other projects. And you can see the irregular nature of that heart is just, I just love the shape of it. I love this, the branches on this side are so cool. And then I'm going to take, this is a Pitt pen, and this is India ink in here, which is waterproof, which is really great for all kinds of different mixed media techniques. And I'm just going to take this and run it around. And actually, it's probably better to do it this way, just in case your marker slips. If it slips, that way you go onto the back side of your piece. And I'm just going to go around this edge and make the edge of my die cut piece black so that it kind of just blends in with the edge of that embossing powder and the ink. And it just kind of finishes that. Okay. I'll just do this on the top side gently or carefully so that I don't go off the edge here. And that way it'll show a little bit better on the top. So that just kind of finishes it off a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is take this little birdie and I'm going to cut the little birdie out. And I might need my craft blade for part of this. In fact, I recall, I think I did use my craft blade for this a little bit. So I have this really great tool. This is from Crafter's Companion. This is one of their, this is called the Crafter's Essentials. And this is a set that comes with all of these different pieces. So if you're a new crafter or you don't have some of these tools, this is a great way to get all of these tools in one little kit. It's a really great price point. And I did link up to this as well if you're interested in this, but I love this. I use this all the time. I keep it over here. I've got some Totally Tiffany storage over to the side, and I use this often. So I am still really addicted to my Cutter Bee scissors, but these are really great little fussy cutters as well that come in that essential toolkit. Okay, so back to our little birdie here. Hey, Carolyn, thanks so much for joining. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Okay, so now I'm just going to fussy cut our sweet little birdie here. And you do want to try to be careful and take your time just because it is fairly intricate, but I just recommend that you just move the paper whenever you need to. So you'll see me using this hand here to move the paper as I'm cutting. And that's going to just allow me to get just more control when I'm cutting. Okay. So I'm just moving the paper. And remember, if I skip any and I leave a little bit of white, I can go back in with that marker and color in any of the white area. So I'm just going to go down to that beak and trim around that beak carefully. And I love this little bird. It is so cute. It is just adorable. So now we're coming to the legs. I don't want a one-legged bird, so I'm going to be really careful here and try my best to make sure that I get this guy cut properly. Just looking at the comments here. Let me know if you have any questions as I'm creating here today. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. But today, if you're just joining, we are featuring a couple of stamps from Tracy Evans. She has some gorgeous new stamps that she just released, and they are so much fun. They are so much fun. Now I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm going to just go in and really carefully try to get this little area in here trimmed out with my blade without amputating a leg on our sweet little birdie. So we'll see how this goes. And I'll try not to cut my finger while I'm doing it. So now that should just kind of start to poke out a little bit there. Go in with our scissors. That should help quite a bit though. And start to release some of that paper around the legs. So where is everyone watching from? I don't think I saw that in the comments. I am in Saskatchewan in Canada, and it is actually really sunny out here today, which is nice. We're having a couple days of sun here. It's been kind of gloomy and dreary, actually, which has not been all that nice, but it is nice and sunny today, which is great. And my sister's in the comments, and she lives in Ottawa, and she told me that she has been having spring-like weather in Ottawa. Hey, Mindy, thanks for joining. Okay, we're just trying not to take the legs off of my little bird here. Oh, Terry's watching from Wisconsin. Nice. Okay, so now I'm going to take my Pitt pen again, and this is that black India ink pen, and I'm just going to go over the edges of my little bird. And in that way, this is going to be just it's going to appear to be completely black from all angles of this sweet little birdie. Try not to get that ink on my fingers. It's a little bit harder to get off. And if you do have to go on top, if you left any white paper there, you can totally do that with your marker as well. And just coloring in all of those different little edges to make our sweet little birdie completely black. So I'll just go here like so. If there's any of that white paper showing. So that is a little bit trickier to trim out just because it's a little bit more intricate around the legs. But it can be done as demonstrated with a little bit of extra time. Now I've got a little bit of embossing powder on my desk. I'm just going to give that a wipe and clean that up. Give that a dry. Carolyn's on vacation in La Cruz, Mexico. Ooh, that sounds fantastic. We were in Mexico in December, Carolyn, but we were in Huatulco, which we really liked. It was super hot, which was what we wanted. So we really enjoyed that too. Okay, so here we've got our little embellishments for the front of our card. Next thing I am going to do is I am going to create some little die cut pieces for details. And I am going to grab that die set. The die set that I'm going to use for that is called Tag It Yourself. This is die set number 27 from All in Create. And this is a really great little set. You get all of these different tag dies and then these little embellishment dies. And it's the little embellishments that I'm going to use for my card today. So I'm actually only going to use the star and the circle. I'm just going to put all of the rest of these guys back in the packaging. And we just need this star and that circle. And then what we're going to do is grab one of our backgrounds again, and we're going to die cut out of this. And I'm actually going to ink blend on over top of it. So it doesn't really matter what part of this we get from the pattern because I'm going to ink blend. Okay, so I'm just going to trim this around the die, and then I'll go ahead and die cut that. Oh yeah, spring fever, right? I saw Gina K post on her Facebook page the other day that there's only, I can't remember the number, but it was a small number of weeks until spring. So we're getting close. We're getting close to the first day of spring. And that is exciting. Sometimes a person just kind of, you lose track of time and where you're at with everything. But that's very much true because we are so close to March now. February's zooming by. So those are the two pieces that I want there for my project. And I'm going to go ahead and put these little dies back in the package. If you have one of these magnets from Spellbinders, you can just stick all of your magnets to the side if you want. And that keeps those small magnets kind of stored safely until you get them put away. And I'm going to just do a little bit of ink blending. Again, I'm just going to use the colors that are in my blending brush here. So I'm going to use a little bit of Kitsch Flamingo, and there's a little bit of Seedless Preserves in this brush. And I'm going to add that to the top of that star. We'll zoom you in a little wee bit so you can see a little better. And then this one has the Villainous potion in it. And so I'm just going to blend that Villainous potion in as well. And actually, you know what? I am going to darken that up a little bit. Do you know what would also work really well for this is the picket fence paper pouncers. You have them, would work for adding ink on in that way as well. When you've got these tiny little pieces that you want to add your ink to. So I'm going to go with this little circle and add that. And then I'll go on with my Villainous potion. And go back in with my Kitsch Flamingo a little bit there too, I think. And darken that up a little bit, and then put those little guys over to the side. So, wow, I actually have that die set, Lynn said. That's awesome. Great minds, right, Lynn? Lynn is my sister, and she and I are obsessed with, we are obsessed with All in Create and Tracy Evans for sure. We like their stuff. 5 weeks away from the first official day of spring. That's fantastic. That is doable, right? We have had such a mild winter here though. Like I can't really even complain. It's been really, really mild. Okay, so the next step, we are going to use a little bit of collage paper for our card as well. And I'm just going to take you out a little bit again. This collage paper that I'm using is Tracy Scott, I think, from Paper Artsy. But I did link up in the description box below to some other collage paper. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be Dina Wakley. It could be Tim Holtz, like whatever you have. And I'm just going to cut a chunk of this off. I'll show you what I have here in a second. These scissors from Spellbinders, by the way, are amazing. I love them. It was Jennifer McGuire that recommended these, and I purchased them, and they are so good. I love them so much. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this, and I'm just going to crumple it up. So originally it's about this size, which is probably about maybe 4 by 4. And I'm just going to crumple that up. And that is going to be an embellishment for the front of our card. Okay. Before I put these onto my card front, I'm actually going to get my card semi-assembled here. And so to do that, I'm going to grab, this is just an A2 top folding card base. This happens to be Hammermill 100-pound paper. And so then we have our card front, and I have a piece of Gina K black cardstock, and I've cut that with the Master Layouts 2 matte layer for behind this stitched frame. Okay, so I am going to actually put this together with a little bit of foam adhesive, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that. I'm doing that because You'll notice that this is a little bit warped. Okay, it's a little bit warped. It's not bad, but a little bit. And a lot of that is because I heated it instead of just letting it dry naturally. And so it's a little warped, but this foam tape will take the warping out. This happens to be scrapbook.com foam tape. I love it. It's nice and wide and it's thin, and it works really well for backing your card fronts. And I enjoy it a lot. So I'm just going to trim that so that it is on the back here. Now you'll notice an X on the back of my paper. That is just how when I was cutting Vicky's foundations paper for my card, I put an X on the wrong side of the paper. One of the things, if you've watched Vicky create before, she always recommends that you use the side of the paper that's meant to be the top. And so I always like to mark my foundations paper so that I know which side is actually the right side of the paper. So I put an X on the back for that reason. Okay, so there we have that. And I'll just give that a press. Now I'll take that off. And I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive onto the back of this. I'm sure you've seen makers do that before. It just gives you an opportunity to make sure that you can wiggle your piece around a little bit before it grabs, because once that foam tape grabs, we know that it's stuck. And this is the glue press from Misty, and it works really well. I love it. Okay, so now, and I'm going to move this down towards myself a little bit, so I know that I'm going to be a little bit off camera. Maybe I'll just take you guys out wide a little bit, just because I don't want to get my head right over, but I do want to make sure that I get this on here as straight as possible before I let go of it. And just because I'm live on video, it's going to give me some fits. Just get that on there as straight as we can. And then what I'll do, I'm going to just make sure I don't have any glue on my fingers, first of all. And then I will give that a good press. Give that a nice, good old press. Make sure that that's on there nice and flat. And now you can just see it is nice because it's dimensional and it's flat. Okay, so now we can start to think about adding this onto our card base. So I'll just go ahead and add a little bit of glue on there. And now I am going to go ahead, and I'm probably going to get my head in the way. I do apologize. And I just want to get this as centered as I possibly can on my card front. That looks pretty good. Might be a little bit low. It could have been a little bit higher. Oh. That looks pretty close, I think. Looks pretty good. So we'll give that a press. Make sure that is stuck down there nicely. The glue press is awesome. I really like it. And I feel like they are back in stock now. So that is nice. Okay, so now that is going to give us our main base for our project. Now what I'm going to do is plan out how this is going to look. So I do want to put that tissue paper in behind there. I'm going to give it a press so that it's not so bulky, but I do want that kind of just poking out in behind there like so. And you can trim that off however you want if you need to. Give it a little bit of a haircut. And that actually is going to be pretty good, I think. So what I'm going to do first is glue that collage paper onto the back of my heart, like so. And I'll just put something heavy on there so that that adheres. And now I'm just going to grab my twine. And this is just twine from my stash. I have no idea where this is from. I did link up to some twine in the description box if you're looking for something that will work. Just going to trim off a chunk. It's the piece that I cut is way too long, but it is about 17 inches, which is tons. And you'll see that when we go to tie that around the heart here. So now what I'm going to do is just wrap this around my little heart. And I'm going to tie this up into a little bow. I'm not the world's greatest bow tire, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to grab this. Oh my gosh, Lynn, thank you. That is crazy. That is very kind. Thank you so much. It's very sweet. So I am going to just finish tying this little bow. My sister is spoiling me. Tighten this up a little bit just by pulling those ends and just trying to decide how big I want these loops to be. They could be a little bit bigger than that. These nails are really nice, but they they do make it a little bit trickier to craft. Okay, so that is going to work, but I don't want these ends to be quite so long. Terry says, so glad I tuned in today. I've never worked with tissue paper on cards, right? And a lot of, you know what, if you have tissue paper in your stash, you can make your own printed tissue paper. So you can take your stamps, and so let's say even these stamps that I used today, I could take these stamps and stamp on just plain tissue paper and make my own patterned paper or patterned tissue paper. And it is so fun. It just adds a nice little bit of extra texture, and that the printing and text or whatever is on there just adds that little bit of extra interest. I really like the looks of it. I think it just looks really cool. And now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add this on to our card. I don't need any foam adhesive on the back of this because the collage paper already is going to add that little bit of dimension. So I'm just going to add the liquid adhesive to the collage paper. And I'll just go ahead and pop this on there like that. And then I'm just going to put my paperweight on there again. And now we're going to add our star. And we're going to add our little circle, and we're going to add our little bird. And I'm also going to add a little gem to the center of the twine. And I'm also going to do some white splatter, but I'm going to do that at the very end. But I'm just taking a look here to see what kind of adhesive I'm going to need here. And I think I'm going to use some of these teeny tiny little foam squares from, I think these are from Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L. Yeah, you can definitely make your own pattern tissue paper. You totally can. Definitely. You definitely can do that. I might add just a little bit of foam adhesive underneath this side of the heart so that it is actually not going to droop in. And now we can add our sweet little birdie. I'm going to add a little bit of foam adhesive under his butt and adhere him down in that way. So this little guy can go right about here at the bottom of that circle. And okay. Just wondering if I need a little bit of adhesive under his head to keep it flat. I might just take a little glue dot if there's actually one left on this sheet. Oh, there is too. I'm lucky. And I'm going to add that just to the head area. And I might actually have to add just a little dab of glue. It's not wanting to stick to that oxide ink there. Super cutie little bird at the bottom. And then we can add the star up here to the top. And I'm going to just use one of these tiny little squares of foam adhesive on the back of work in frame here, Mari, so people can see what you're doing. I'm going to give that a press. And that is going to be what adheres this star on the side right there. Okay. And you could also put a little dab of liquid adhesive underneath there, or a glue dot as well, if you're concerned about it staying put. And I'll just add a little bit of liquid adhesive onto this circle. And I'm going to put it right over top of that circle at the bottom. Just add that little bit of detail down there as well. Okay, now I am going to I will add the gem on at the very end. The next thing I'm going to do is a little bit of splatter. And I'm going to do that by taking a little bit of my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. This is great for adding splatter over top of oxide ink, because with some pigments, you add them over top of oxide ink and they don't stay white. And I don't want to add too much water to this, because if you dilute it too much, it won't keep its opacity either. So I want this to stay really nice and opaque white. And I don't have my spot box really close by, so I'm just going to kind of use my hand to shield my cameras, my expensive laptop, and so on. But I am just splattering this down over top. Oh, that's too big of a gob. And this is just going to add just a little bit of interest. I love my white splatter. I really do. And I always have a little container on the side of my desk to rinse my brushes when they've got acrylic, anything acrylic or plastic, so that it doesn't dry in the brush before I get it cleaned. And where did I buy the Dr. P.H. Martin's? It's a really good question, Jareen. Maybe Amazon. I might have gotten that from Amazon. I should see if Julia can get this in the store, though, because I feel like this would be a really hot item. I think people would buy this because it's great. And I often use Dina Wakley's gloss spray in white, but when you're going over top of oxide, it's just nice to have something like this, because it doesn't bleed. It stays nice and bright white, which is great. Okay, so there you can just see that nice detail that I got with that white splatter. I'll just zoom you in so you can see that. It just looks really nice and crisp. And yeah, I like the non-bleed. Yeah, it does work really well. And now I'm going to grab just a random gem from my stash. I've got some Crafter's Companion crystal droplets here, and I'm going to grab one of these to add to the center of my twine, just as a little extra detail. And I'll just flip that guy over. Easier said than done, right? Sometimes getting these faceted gems to flip over can be some sort of feat in itself. This is going to stay glued on here the best, I think, with glossy accents. So I'm going to add a gob of glossy accents to the center of that twine. It's just glossy accents from Ranger. And then I'll just take my tool here and pick that up and add that little gem to the center of my twine. And friends, that's going to finish the card today. That finishes it off. So we've got a really, really simple and easy background technique with the stencil stamping using the Lindy's Magicals. You do not have to use Magicals for this technique. You can use any of your different powders that you have in your stash, whatever brand they might be. And it does just work really well. And I love that technique so much. It's a really simple technique that you can use. And how many of us have 100,000 stencils in our stash? You can create zillions of different patterns with that technique using your stencils. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about the class that I'm going to be teaching at the Paper and Ink Boutique and the Paper Crafters Workshop. So March 17th, which is a Sunday, and I think it's 11 o'clock Mountain that it starts. I'm going to be teaching a class. Thank you so much, Sylvie. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your kind comments, everyone. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate it. The class is, I believe it's a 3-hour class. It is recorded so that if you can't be there for the class live, it's recorded. You can watch it on replay. And we're going to be creating 3 cards in this class. These are the cards that we're going to be creating. And it's just a really fun mixed media class. And it's very easy mixed media. So if you're someone who's not really sure about mixed media and you're not sure if it's in your wheelhouse, or you're kind of just starting about thinking maybe you'd like to try some things with mixed media, this class is for you because it's a very gentle mixed media type of class. The class is paced very, very nicely so that it's nice and slow. You won't feel overwhelmed. And I'm going to teach you some really beautiful techniques with this Lotus Cluster stamp from All in Create. So that is going to be March 17th. I have linked in the description box below to both the Paper and Ink Boutique and the Paper Crafters Workshop in Stouffville, Ontario. So if you're closer and Paper Crafters is your store, then I highly suggest that you or recommend that you register through that store. And if your store if you're more in the West and you shop more with the Paper and Ink Boutique, then you can definitely register with them, and they will send out the kits, or you can pick the kits up in their store. It's a virtual class. You can take the class from anywhere in the world, and it will be really fun. So that is March 17th. And if you want to see the pricing for the class and all the details, what you get in the kit and so on, you can click those links and check that out. But I think it's, I want to say it's maybe $45, and you do get the stamp to keep. And then you can use stencils from your stash, whatever you have. You don't have to have the stencils that I used. And all of the products that I used are listed in the description of the class in the store, whether it's the Paper and Ink Boutique or the Paper Crafters Workshop. So that is the Lotus Cluster class that I'll be teaching on March 15th or 17th. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be fun. And I do have more Tracy Evans card classes coming. I will be teaching with her next release. And Doreen says, will you be doing in-person classes this way? I would like to do that in 2024. I would really love to. And, hopefully that happens. I am teaching in Ontario in April. So if you're interested in taking a class from me live, I will be teaching in person at Scrap Fest in Kitchener, Ontario on, I think it's April 13th and 14th. And that is in person. So I have 2 classes. One of them involves some scrapbooking and one of them is just card making. And they're really fun classes. I don't have those projects right here with me right now, but you can see them on the Scrap Fest website. So if you just Google Scrap Fest, one word, SCRAPFEST 2024, you can check out what those classes are like too. Can you get the supplies online? Terry, yes, you can. If you can't take the class from me for whatever reason and you wanted to get the supplies, you definitely could just get them, but you can get all of the supplies that you would need from either of those stores, the Paper and Ink Boutique. The Paper and Ink Boutique does ship to the US. I'm not sure about the Paper Crafters Workshop. You'd have to check. I'm guessing that they do, but you can check with them. But I know that the Paper and Ink Boutique has tons of customers from the States. So they definitely would ship to the US as well. Okay, friends, I am going to bring you back over to my face here. And we can chat and I can answer any other questions that you might have from that vantage point here. So I'm just going to switch over. I'll just shut these big lights off and bring you back around here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited that so many people were here. I think we were up to 18 or something at one point. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun. I love creating cards like this. I love working with mixed media, whether it's scrapbooking or card making, art journaling, whatever. And so I just love to play with the products and see what they'll do and just, make stuff, make art. I always say try to be creative, try to be a little bit creative, if not every day, as often as you can, because I think it's just a little gift that you can give yourself. I think it's a way for you to be kind to yourself. I think expressing yourself creatively is just a beautiful thing. And I think it just brings happiness to all of us. So I highly recommend getting creative as often as you can. And I thank you so much for joining me. I am going to try to continue with being live on Tuesdays, whether it's at noon or, later in the day. But Tuesday right now seems to work. And I like it. I like being live on Tuesdays for whatever reason. It just seems to work well with my schedule. Thank you so much again, friends. I really appreciate it. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.